Good morning, everyone. We'll call this meeting number 3 of the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage to order. And we have a very busy schedule this morning, and we will start off today. We are honoured with a visit from the Minister of State for Sport, the Honourable Paul Gossel. And Minister, you have the floor for 10 minutes. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, and I would like to thank the members of this committee for inviting me to speak today. With me to take part in discussion is Lane McAdam from Sport Canada, and Marcel Bou and Caroline should be joining any minute. They're on the way. Like most Canadians, I love sport. I believe it is part of our culture and part of our identity. It has the ability to bring us closer together and instill national pride. In my role as Minister of State for Sport, I have been lucky to spend my time supporting our elite athletes on the field, rinks, and hills across Canada. It is incredible to watch the determination and pride wearing the maple leaf brings to our athletes. In 80 short days, sporting fans from across the world will focus on Sochi, Russia, as our elite athletes pursue their dreams of standing atop the podium. As we sit here today, our Canadian athletes are in the final stages of preparing to give their everything at the 2014 Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games in Sochi. So this is the good time to discuss how ready we are and how well we expect to be. Our government does not shy away from our record investment in sport. Through Sport Canada, our government is working to ensure our Canadian athletes have the tools they need to reach their goals in the pursuit of sporting excellence. Since being elected, our government has been working with our partners to provide our athletes with a strong sports system that includes access to high-quality training environments and world-class coaching. The government is also working with national sports organizations to create opportunities to host international competitions on home soil, and by helping our athletes concentrate on training to achieve their podium dreams. The Government of Canada supports Canada's sports system and our athletes with an investment of nearly $200 million a year through Sport Canada's 3 key programs: the Sports Support Program, the Hosting Program, and the Athlete Assistance Program. Since coming to office, our government has invested nearly $990 million into the Canadian high-performance sports system, making the Government of Canada the largest single contributor to sport in the country. I would also like to point out this funding represents an increase in the sport to Canadian sports system of 52% since our government has come to office. This sport has allowed Canada to emerge as a leading sport nation. It has provided our athletes access to cutting-edge sports science and research. It has allowed our athletes a world-class training environment, and it has allowed our athletes to receive the best coaching in the world. Our government has invested over $153 million into winter sport over the last 4-year winter sport cycle. This is an increase of over $25 million, or a 20% increase since the last 4-year cycle prior to 2010 Vancouver Olympics and Paralympic Games. Furthermore, this would be an increase of 112% since the 4-year cycle prior to 2006 Winter Games in Torino. Our government wants to ensure that no stone is left unturned and our athletes are able to do what they do best to win. The Sports Sport Program is primary funding vehicle to Sport Canada national sports organizations, Canadian sports centres, and multi-sport service organizations. The annual budget of more than $140 million funds initiatives to encourage sport participation and programs for high-performance athletes and includes targeted funding to help our athletes fulfill their Olympic and Paralympic dreams. While our government is working with our partners to allow our athletes to succeed, we're also working to ensure Canadian athletes are competing fairly and clean. recently announced Sports Canada's annual funding to Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sport to fund anti-doping initiatives such as athletes testing and anti-doping hotline. In 2013-14, this amount to an investment of $5.9 million. The hosting program supports the efforts of Canadian communities to host international sport events, like the 2010 Olympic and Paralympic Games in Vancouver and the 2015 Pan American and Para-Pan American Games, which will take place in a Greater Golden Horseshoe region. Hosting these sports events in Canada benefits our athletes, inspires Canadians, creates jobs and economic opportunities in the host communities, and leaves a legacy of improved sports infrastructure. Our athletes gain valuable competition experience on home soil and benefits from new and improved facilities that allow them to train further and prepare to win for Canada at international competitions, including Olympic and Paralympic Games. Finally, I would like to highlight the committee that our government is providing direct funding to our top athletes to help their living and training expenses as well as post-secondary education. This allows them to concentrate on athletic training. Through this program, we are providing $28 million every year to support more than 1,700 athletes. It is the largest source of direct financial assistance to athletes in Canada, helping our athletes train full-time in lead up to Sochi Winter Games. Alexandra Villado, Me Ricker, and Josh Dudek are just three of these most well-known athletes benefiting from this program. As you will no doubt remember, Alexandra became the first Canadian athlete to win an Olympic gold medal right here in Canada at the 2010 Winter Games. It was the first of record 14 gold medals for our Olympians this year. And the 19 medals earned by our Paralympians in Vancouver showed the world that our athletes can compete with the very best. As Canadians, we are proud of our country's success as a leading sport nation. That is why, as a government, we are proud to support our athletes and help them achieve their podium dreams. Their success inspires us all, including our future Olympians and Paralympians. I'm pleased to report that in 4 years leading up to the Games, our government has done as much as we could to help our athletes and teams reach podium in Sochi. We are and will continue to closely work with both Canadian Olympic Committee, Canadian Paralympic Committee, and On the Podium to ensure that our funding is putting Canadians atop the podium. In just a few months, Canada's best winter sports athletes will compete against the world's best, and Canada has ambitious goals for success. Our Olympic athletes have set a high goal for themselves, hoping to achieve the top spot in the overall medal count. And our Paralympians are determined to finish in the top 3 in the gold medal count. The 2014 Sochi Winter Games promises to be an exciting event for all Canadians. It is an opportunity to promote our culture and our values of openness and fair play. It is a chance to affirm our reputation as a leading sport nation. And it is an occasion to come together as Canadians to support our athletes in pursuit of excellence. I will now be pleased to respond to any questions you have. Thank you. Merci.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister. We are expecting the President of the Canadian Olympic Committee, Marcel Aubu, momentarily. So with the indulgence of the committee, if it's approved, that when he arrives, that we would give him his 10 minutes, which would start at the end of the questioner when that person is questioning. So if the committee's okay if we go on that basis, and on that basis we will start the first round of questioning. It will be for 7 minutes. Mr. Richards.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Pleasure to have you here today, Minister. I appreciated your remarks. Certainly great to hear the funding that our government has provided to our athletes, and certainly to hear over the last 4 years the type of funding that they've received. I'm sure we can expect a great performance at this year's Games. I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm curious as to what you think we can expect from our athletes. What's your predictions for our Olympic and how successful we'll be as a country this time around?
We work closely with the Canadian Olympic and Paralympic committees and National Sports Organization. When we look at the winter season they just had, and they set a very high goal, and I'm very supportive of that goal, and the way our athletes training is going. I've been attending numerous sporting events, and we're proud of our athletes, and we are, I think we're on target to finish overall first.
Excellent. That's great. I'm hoping that you're right on that, and I'm sure that we've got well-trained athletes, and I think part of that comes from the fact that I think in Canada one of the things we see encouraged heavily is past athletes, former Olympians staying involved in their sports and participating, whether that be as administrators, coaches. And we see a lot of it. I know I can think even in my own hometown where we've seen a former Olympian coach, the swim club there, and we see it all the time in Canada. And I'm just wondering that can't just be completely by accident. There must be somewhat by design. Wonder if you can tell me a little bit about some of the efforts that are being made in Canada to ensure that some of our best athletes, our Olympians, stay involved in their sports after their competitive careers are over, and what we can do to further encourage that.
Well, that is, thank you for the question. That is what we do. We work with National Sports Organization, especially on the podium program. Is great, a success story, and a lot of countries are looking up to that on the podium programs. I was in London Olympics last summer, and UK set up their high-performance program, after learning from on the podium program, and that's where we bring in, athletes, mentors, and encourage all the athletes to keep involved and get into coaching. Just yesterday, CHPC announced a program, Next Team program, where they're partnering the 67 athletes with some of the past Olympians and Paralympians to mentor them, so that they are getting ready for the Pan American Games in 2015. So we work with National Sports Organization on the podium program to encourage our athletes to stay involved, either by mentoring, coaching, training, and we're very much involved in that.
Appreciate that you mentioned the upcoming Pan American Games that we'll be hosting in the Toronto area. You mentioned it in your opening remarks a little bit about how important it is for us as a country to host games in Canada, and how that obviously it creates an excitement amongst our youth for sport, and encourages future athletes, I'm sure. Is there any statistics that you can share with us, or any information that you have on just exactly how those kinds of events do encourage young people? I mean, I know certainly for myself, I think of 1988 when the Olympics were in Calgary, and of course one of the host communities there was Canmore in my riding, and now we do. It's amazing how many Olympic athletes we see coming out of Canmore for a very small community. In fact, so obviously the fact that there's a training center there does of course help. But obviously that does encourage young people to be involved in sport. But is there any more information or stats you can share with us as to exactly what hosting those international events does do for sport in Canada?
Oh, hosting is very important. I believe when we host any national, international competitions, the facilities that are left behind after that, the legacy that's left behind. Example is 88 Calgary Olympics, 2010 Vancouver Olympics, and for especially Pan and Pan American Games, building, Government of Canada committed $500 million on infrastructure and legacy programs, and we're going to have first ever velodrome built in Milton, Ontario, in Canada. Once we build these facilities, they are international level facilities. They produce those athletes that that young kids get inspired while watching athletes, especially when they compete on the home ground. And also, when we have the facilities, that produces a record number of athletes. And I'll ask Lane to add some of the stats from the past.
Sure. There's no question that, I mean, if you look at the Vancouver Olympic Games, the gold medal hockey game was the most watched television broadcast in Canadian history. So obviously Canadians are passionate about sport and interested in watching sport. And certainly many sports have observed spikes in membership rates following large-scale events. The women's soccer medal in London 2 years ago certainly saw an increase in the membership for girls soccer. So I mean, there's certainly evidence of the impact that hosting these events on home soil has in terms of opportunities for young Canadians to participate in these activities. And as the Minister mentioned, a lot of these are brand new facilities that are otherwise would not be in place had the Games not be hosted in a particular region of the country.
Great, thank you. With the time I've got left, I'd just like to focus in on, I know you mentioned in your speech as well, Minister, about some of the efforts and the most recent efforts in terms of the hotline and things like that to deal with anti-doping. And I'm just wondering if you can tell me a bit more about what the Government of Canada is doing, and including working with partners, and maybe Mr. Obu, I know he hasn't had a chance to give his opening presentation yet, but maybe if there's time as well, he may have some comments that you'd like him to provide on behalf of the Olympic Committee in terms of what we're doing to further anti-doping efforts.
Well, thank you again. And Canada is very proactive. I mean, World Anti-Doping Agency headquartered in Montreal, and Canada sit on the executive table there, and we work closely with the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sports. This year alone, we funded another $400,000 for 1 year to have extra testing leading up to Sochi. And they work very proactively with national sports organizations to have our athletes tested, and so there's a fair play. Almost close to $6 million for 2013-2014 for the Canadian Ethics for Sports.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Minister. We're going to have to end that first round. We'd now like to welcome from the Canadian Olympic Committee, President Marcel Obu. And for 10 minutes, you have the floor, and then we're going to go back to the questioning once you have completed your remarks. Thank you very much.
Monsieur le Président, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chairman, honourable members of the committee. It's with pleasure that I have joined you this morning to speak to the preparations that are being made by the Canadian team.
Vous serez peut-être surpris d'apprendre que le COC
You know, doubtless, that the Canadian Olympic Committee is the committee that deals with the funding for the Olympics.
Tremendous role as the country's largest contributor to sport. Without question, continuous strong and stable government and private sector funding is critical to our success today, tomorrow, and well into the future. Au nom des athlètes canadiens, des entraîneurs et de
On behalf of Canadian athletes, coaches, and all involved in sport, I would like to thank Prime Minister Harper, Minister Gozals to my right, and Minister Flaherty for the great support that they have given us. That being said, our athletes and our coaches do need this support constantly, and also in the same quantities.
For these games, the goal of the Canadian Olympic team is to contend for the top spot in overall medals. À Sochi, l'équipe olympique canadienne tentera de changer l'histoire.
Sochi, the Canadian Olympic team will try to change a history and make Canada the first host country to bring home more medals than they did in the previous Olympics. This is something that is ambitious, but we have goals and we will do that. We have to be ambitious, though, to reach excellence.
In many countries, and sport is becoming, and it's a fact, more and more competitive all over the world. We now see that for the first time, there are as many as 5 countries, all within striking distance on that top spot. Very tight competition. 1 or 2 medals may make the difference between finishing first and fifth. As we know, anything can happen at the Olympic Games. It's not necessarily the best athlete that wins, but often the athlete who is most prepared to compete and win in the Olympic environment. Often that's the athlete who is the winner. This is why the Canadian Olympic Committee Games Preparation Initiative and Mission Team, that's the team behind the athletes team, have been working for the last 5 years to leave no stone unturned in preparing for Sochi. The COC a mis tout en œuvre afin que les athlètes canadiens aient les meilleures conditions possibles pour.
They have worked very hard, the COC has worked very hard to allow Canadians to be involved to the utmost, using all the talent available. The first time that the club, or if you like the team, the miscellaneous team, went to Sochi, made a circle, or rather a complete visit, an overview of all the preparation that was underway, and we benefited from that.
To Sochi will be the first Olympic winter team to have gone through a full cycle of our Games preparation program, which I will describe to you today. And this is critical because the Sochi Games will be the largest magnitude of games ever. More sport, more competition, more athletes, and a lot more attention. We anticipate that we will send our largest winter team ever with more than 215 athletes and 90 coaches. And with the supported team, that's 550 people. 550 personnes comme le contingent du Canada qui s'en vont.
150 other people will be going.
Rookie athletes, le plus grand nombre d'athlètes pour la première année. That's create the part of that complexity, the unknown. They are there for the first time. We are sending the most number of team members to Sochi for the most number of familiarization visits. On n'y a jamais été aussi souvent avant pour se familiariser.
We've never been there so often to be familiar with the premises. This one is very important.
It is to operate 10. We have to operate 10 different facilities in Sochi. Therefore, needing the largest mission team members ever because of all that complexity, and I am also pleased because of cooperation of some different group for the first time ever. Every single athlete will be subject to doping control before leaving our soil. We do all of this because we know it makes a difference to performance, especially when a fraction of a second or 1 point can make the difference between a medal or no medal. There is an absolute science behind the preparation that we undertake in partnership with the athletes, coaches, and National Sports Federation. Et notre grande force, notre grande expertise, c'est vraiment des écouter.
These are experts, so we have to listen to them. We have to listen to the experts, our coaches, our athletes, so that we know the consequences. We have learned through the various Olympic Games that there is much to be learned, and we learn from that. We don't make the same mistakes.
That we deliver the largest mission operations. Here are some examples. We have chartered for the first time, première fois qu'on fait ça, a full boat to take 145,000 pounds of Canadian product, equipment to Sochi, valeur de 3 millions, value at $3 million. We will be distributing 60,000 pieces of team clothing in over 550 bags, and hopefully these bags will come back home not only with red and white clothing, but also with color gold, silver, and bronze. And we have transmitted 22,500 pieces of data to register the team for the Games. We have truly looked at all aspects of the uniqueness of these Olympic Games, and have systematically delivered a program against all those elements in order to best prepare our athletes and coaches. This includes heightened media attention, preparation, increased family and friend services. It also includes team building and using other Olympian champions to inspire and motivate the team. Ainsi, nous nous assurons que toute la famille olympique canadienne sera.
That is how we will motivate the team and assure Canadians that our team will be ready in Sochi.
Case. 3 of those facilities include the Olympic villages, where our athletes will live. There's 3 of them. Il y en a 3. The coastal village, mountain village, and the endurance village. More complex than usual. Dans les 3 villages, le Comité olympique.
In the 3 villages, the Olympic Committee will offer varied services.
To meet each other, share stories, and get advice from COC Athlete Services officers, who are all Olympians themselves. It was in the Athlete Lounge, if we remember, in Vancouver, that our famous Sidney Crosby was playing table tennis with his fellow teammates from other sports and hockey. Les athlètes canadiens bénéficieront aussi du fameux programme Second chez soi.
The athletes will benefit from these programs that are in place in Sochi. They will have an extremely comfortable, familiar environment to relax in.
For the exclusive use of the Canadian team in the village with a complete health and science clinic filled with an expert Canadian health team. L'équipe de soutien comprend des médecins, des thérapeutes, des personnels des opérations.
That will include doctors, communications experts, nurses, people from the RCMP as well.
Important to provide a calm and relaxing environment. On site, we have that. Again, this is a unique what we offer to the team, an example like this. And we know it makes a difference. Just remember in Vancouver, you know, the coach of Joanie Rochette, who was the pillar of her strength, used this as the turnaround of the situation as far as Joanie was facing, and we know the rest of the story about the performance she did. Nos spécialistes de la santé et du bien-être.
Our health specialists, our well-being specialists will be there to ensure the performance of the athletes rather than to provide any distraction. We want to have, and we also will have a Center for Technology and Performance, which
team performances. Et bien sûr, nous avons un gymnase haute performance que l'on retrouve.
And beyond the gym, I can say that we will have the same equipment at home as in Sochi in the gym.
Canadian at Sochi, from medal ceremonies to corporate partners, activation and management offices, all above mainly for the family and friends of the athletes to make sure they focus on their performance and forget any distraction. Vous aurez compris que la tâche est énorme.
You will understand, of course, that this is an enormous undertaking, what I've described to you today, but this gives you a small idea of something that is so incredibly important to us. These are very costly games, probably the most costly and the most complex Olympics ever. We are going and we will be ready to compete for first place ferociously. We're there.
So any question with my colleague on my left, with the chief of sport. He's the boss of sport of our country, right here on my left. And I'm not talking about that kind of boss, this one. Okay. And the head of executive director of communication, Canadian Olympic Committee, Dimitri Sodas, that I'm very proud to be with today.
Okay. Thank you very much, Monsieur Obu. We're going to go back to our questioning, and from the official opposition, Mr. Garrison.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start by thanking the Minister and the President of the Canadian Olympic Committee for making the time to be here to talk about preparations today. We all appreciate the enormous efforts that are going into preparing for these games, and I'm pleased to have an opportunity to talk about these preparations from the point of view of an inclusive Olympics, so that all athletes, their families and spectators can feel free to participate in the Olympic Games. And I want to start by noting the very positive work the Canadian Olympic Committee has done in promoting an inclusive Olympics. The challenge for these Olympics is they're taking place in Russia, which has recently passed a law known as the anti-gay propaganda law, which, as I'm sure most people are aware, makes any public discussion or demonstration of pro-gay ideas illegal. And individuals and organizations are subject to fines, detention, non-Russians to deportation, and a ban from returning to the country. And this morning I've asked the committee to circulate 2 posters, and I wonder if those could also be made available to the minister and the witness, because I'd like to ask very specifically about these posters. The anti-gay law in Russia has already been enforced against Russians and non-Russians alike, including an individual who held up a handmade sign saying, quote, "Being gay and loving gays is normal, beating gays and killing gays is a crime," who was arrested and fined for holding up that sign. Non-Russians, including a Dutch delegation from Groningen who were visiting their sister city, were arrested, detained, fined, deported, and banned from Russia for 3 years. So we have examples, very clear examples of this law being applied. So I have a very specific question to the Minister of Sport. These posters, which I'm not sure he's just received yet, prepared by Fondation Emergence of Montreal, depict 2 male hockey players kissing and 2 female snowboarders. These posters would be illegal in Russia, and if any of Canadian participants chose to display these posters, they would potentially be subject to the anti-gay law, or if an athlete with a same-sex partner wished to celebrate by kissing their partner, as in the posters, this is also illegal in Russia. So I would like to ask the minister specifically, what is Canada doing to make sure that all Canadian athletes, families, spectators can participate freely and fully in these games?
Oh, thank you very much. And the Government of Canada have raised concern directly with Russian authorities on this, and we were working, and we all know that protection and promotion of human rights is a hallmark of Canadian foreign policy. Very proactive. This one? Technology. Okay. Thank you. As I was mentioning that Canada is very proactive. We have raised our concern with Russian authorities, and promotion and protection of human rights is a hallmark of Canadian foreign policy. And International Olympic Committee has received assurance from the Russian government that this law will not affect any of those taking part in Sochi. We're working with the Canadian Olympic Committee and Paralympic Committee as well. I think Mr. Abu can add on to this more.
Yes, Mr. Minister, you are absolutely right. Vous êtes absolument correct.
Absolutely right.
Position on this is pretty clear one. First of all, that's not our job to become involved in any political debate as general a comment. You know, our job is to win and get prepared. And secondly, we are absolutely, you know, we are basing all our rationale here on the absolute right to play sport, regardless race, gender, and sexual orientation. And that's nothing to do. Sport has no limit as far as being right. Also, we brought it to the IOC, which is the International Olympic Committee. We are a subsidiary of the IOC. We run Canada. And with the cooperation of the Minister of Sport, we also receive an absolute assurance from the highest authority, International Olympic Committee, that who were really handling this on behalf of all of us, and dealing directly with the government of Russia, that this legislation will have no impact of our fan, our athlete, our media, our Canadian Olympic team at large. We have absolute guarantee. IOC and the COC are satisfied with that guarantee. And the priority, I repeat again, get prepared, no distraction, concentration, focus, preparation, and the better answer to all of this is to win.
So with respect, though, for gay and lesbian or gender variant athletes, it is a distraction to have such a threat. And both the Minister of Sport of Russia and the Minister of the Interior have contradicted the President and said that these laws will be enforced at the time of the Games. So my question back to the Minister is, we've in the NDP suggested that a consular official, a special consular official, be appointed at the Games to assist any Canadians who run into problems with the application of this law. And we haven't had an official response from the government on this idea of appointing, as New Zealand has done, a special consular official to assist any Canadians with problems with this law.
As I said again, like we're working with the Russian authorities, and the consular officials from consulate office in Russia will be in Sochi, and they'll be helping all Canadians with any of the issues that arise, and that is already done.
Well, with respect, Mr. Minister, it's not just all Canadians. We have a specific problem with the Russian anti-gay law, and what we're asking for is that someone be prepared and that person be identified so that anyone who has a problem with the laws could contact that official in Sochi to receive assistance. So once again, we're not asking just for the same general assistance that all other Canadians would receive, but for some special measures to be taken, given the statements by the Minister of Sport and the Minister of the Interior that the laws would be enforced. I think it would be prudent to have someone who's designated to assist Canadians in this way.
You want to?
Just to add to what the Minister said, we've certainly been working with Foreign Affairs over the planning period going into Sochi. The Moscow Post has been actively involved in the preparations and planning. There will be consular officers specifically designated to be posted in Sochi for the period of the Games, and certainly this will be one of the areas that they'll be watching carefully for.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garrison. We'll move to Monsieur Dion for 7 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you so much to be with us. Minister, I wish you the best. I wish Canada the best. On this issue, partisan politics has no role to play. I am in your team as when we play soccer against the media. To you, et à vous aussi, Monsieur Aubu.
And to you as well, Mr. Aubu.
A few weeks before the event, what are the most rushing tasks you have to do? And in which way this committee may be a help?
I think preparations are going well. We have daily briefings, and our teams are ready. And whatever sport they need, Sport Canada is providing them. We're working very closely with national sports organizations and the Canadian Olympic and Paralympic committees to make sure these are, and there's no issues, and our teams are ready, and they have all the facilities, all the services they need. I'll ask Mr. Abu to add on to any of the other preparations.
Yeah, we modestly said we have a worldwide reputation as far as preparation for Olympic Games, and we even are improving a lot. This is the most complex game coming up, and we are absolutely prepared to meet that challenge. And I will ask Caroline to add a few things. She's leading that whole preparation, detail, quality, check. And she is doing that, 20 hours a day right now.
Thank you. With respect to what you can do, what the public can do, what Canadians across all communities can do, I think it's surprising to hear this, but every single athlete feels the support of Canadians. They feel the support when Canadians are cheering or sending them messages or supporting them. I think you just need to continue to do that because, as our president said, we have 215 athletes that are going to be part of the Sochi team. They come from 215 communities across our country, from coast to coast to coast. So when our athletes are competing at home or are at events, show them how much we take pride in their achievement and how much we are behind them. I think showing them support comes with a financial package, but also it's the human one-on-one. So I think that's something that we can do. For us as a Canadian Olympic Committee, it is literally, we are responsible for 550 people for 21 days, every day, every minute. So we are just going through rehearsals and what if scenarios and what if plan A doesn't work? Do we have a plan B? Do we have a plan C? Every single element is what we're doing right now. We're going through our rehearsals.
Thank you. There is, as you know, there's a very special connection, Mr. Dion, you know that, between the team and the Canadian, very strong connection. That's probably the best things we need to feel as far as support, where we are doing that detailed preparation. That's why we have announced already in August the short track, and we are going to do the announcement for each of them. It's an initiative of our communication department. There is 17 more announcements about team living for Sochi coming up from now until January. And that's why we believe that's elevate the connection between the team and the Canadians, and this is probably the best element of our preparation you can imagine.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I certainly agree with your intervention, Mr. Obu, when you said the goal is to win. At that level of a sport, participation is great, but winning is better. Mr. Garrison, the questions by Mr. Garrison are very closely linked to that. If, for example, there is an issue with respect to sexual orientation, that could disturb the athletes and also the Canadians who will be there. So you really have to provide the maximum of guarantees so that they can perform. Secondly, there must be no problems with respect to official languages, because it can certainly hurt us. We want to place everything and see it through the prism of success and only success. Therefore, we want to be able to take all necessary precautions so that the Canadian team will not be disturbed in any way. Thank you. If you will allow me to intervene, we have been in charge of the committee for some time now, and you know there have been drastic changes since that time with respect to language as well. Everything that we do is 50-50 in our activities and at Sochi. So with respect to official languages, you can be sure that we will defend our official languages, our second official language. If each person does his or her job well to protect the athletes, the friends, of the families and the Canadians who are there to attend, that is where we will be able to separate the men from the boys and the parents and so on. We want to ensure that there will be an ability to keep focused, to just focus on what the job is to do. I can assure you, Sir, that there will certainly not be any disturbance. Well, if there were ever any disturbance, and I hope not, that will not affect our athletes.
Heritage plays a leadership role, and all the contribution agreements we sign and its commitment is there for both official languages. Especially CBC is the broadcaster, and they are broadcasting in both official languages. Radio Canada and CBC are broadcasting rights for the games. So as the Government of Canada, we're committed to official languages. Even all the competitions that are held in Canada, they're held in both official languages. It's in the contribution agreement signed.
Okay, merci, Monsieur Dion. We'll move to Mr. Young for 7 minutes.
here today. Appreciate it very much. I'd like to start, if I may, with Madame Assalian. Did I say it correctly? Thank you. I was very interested in what you said about moral support for athletes, that they really feel it from Canadians. And I felt that in the past with our athletes from Oakville and para-athletes. I wanted to ask you, how are you planning to use social media to connect with the athletes and to give them the kind of boost they need from the Canadian people? And I mean, so I'm asking, are the athletes using Twitter now? Are people following our athletes? Is that building up? And how do you plan to maximize that during the games?
If you don't mind, I'm going to defer the question to our executive director.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. So I'll give you an example. About 2 years ago, the Canadian Olympic Committee had roughly 4,000 followers on Twitter. We're approaching 40,000 followers today. So I would say that that's a positive direction. Yes, what we try and do with our social media platforms, whether it's our website, which is olympic.ca, www.olympic.ca, our Facebook page, as well as our Twitter account, is not only one-way communication to fans, but also to engage and interact with them, but also to tell our athletes' stories, to talk about our athletes' performances, whether it's at World Championships, at the Olympic Games. And yes, our athletes are obviously very much engaged into social media, and they themselves quite often interact with their fans. The key thing is to connect with fans on the platforms that they use. You know, some people connect with athletes by going to local town halls or to local meetings. That's why over the last 12 months, we've had more than 1,000 Olympians re-engage into communities across the country with more than 140 events. So what we try and do is provide all the support to the athletes across all platforms, whether it's social media or communities across the country, whether it's Santa Claus parades, St. Patrick's Day parades, and for the first time ever this year, for the first time ever in Canadian Olympic Committee history, to a couple of the questions that were asked, our athletes participated in pride parades across the country before it even became an issue.
That is actually very interesting. When you say stories, I think everybody remembers when Alexander Bilodeau won the first gold in Vancouver. The beautiful story was his relationship with his brother. And so that stuff is very touching, and it helps you remember. Another question I'd like to ask Monsieur Abieu, along that line, everybody remembers the people who won the gold. But I want to ask you a question about the people who don't win, our athletes who don't win, because more of them don't win than win. And what support do they get by way of coaching and moral support when they lose?
On site at Sochi, let's say?
Along the way, like on site and then after.
Along the way.
Yeah.
We have decided, you know, when we take over this job altogether, that the core of our business will be in the future athletes and coaches. Everything else is ancillary. You know, necessary, we need finance, we need all kind of other initiatives, but core business is now athletes and coaches. For the winner, for the one who don't win, those one who don't win now, we could win later. You know, this is very much analyzed, and they got an absolute support at all time. Of course, we want to win, and the pressure is strong that we do it, and we are preparing everything to create the environment to allow this. But as far as the athletes who have you know, you should have seen in Joanne Rashek's situation, the environment she irritated as soon as she lost her mother. Well, it was very impressive. That's one of my best souvenirs in my life, about how we surrounded her and we find a way that she could still perform and win. And nobody is left alone in our organization. No athlete is left alone.
I'm very glad to hear that.
And go ahead.
Do you want, just a couple of things. Right now, as we speak, there are athletes that will not be going to Sochi. They are being deselected for the team. We are actually starting right now working with the Canadian Sport Institute Network to work on an athlete transition program so that as of today, athletes are not going to win. We know that, and we're working with the centers. The other thing is, as our president said, we have experiences dealing with athletes that have not had their best performance at the Olympic Games this time. They may next time, so we need to make sure they stay motivated for next time.
All right, thank you. On a different vein, Monsieur Abieu, does the location of Sochi in southern Russia, does that present any unique challenges And if so, how are you addressing those?
Well, Russia, there's no secret that Russia itself was challenges. And secondly, to also a game in a so small area was also a challenge. And also the weather that we expect about being, like Florida on the ground and very cold and snowing up there on the mountains is going to be the kind of weather that no winter sport experienced before. Then challenges would be, tremendous. That's what we are talking often about, the most complex game. That includes all those elements. But we went there many times. They were the record as far as familiarization with the location, with the COC. And we, on the other side, we feel that we could really go around any of those challenges. And on the other side, it's a small area, but everything is close too. We are going to get from the mountains to the park, the Olympic Park, and with a fast train. It's going to take minutes. And also in the park itself, most of the greatest facilities like the arena, like the stadium, all at walking distance. There's always big challenge, but there's always, advantages that every site offer, every country offer, and every city offer. And Sochi offer a lot of them, even if it's a very complex situation.
Just quickly, could you please tell us the state of your preparations for the Sochi Games for both Paralympic and Olympic athletes?
Well, for the Olympic preparations, it's going extremely well. Again, we have the experience. We equate Sochi very much to Beijing, like how the Beijing Olympic Games was. Athletes weren't very familiar with the Beijing environment, so we're using the best practices from what we did in Beijing when applying it to Sochi. So whether it's the languages, whether it's other things. But again, I just want to touch upon your question on challenges. When our president says we leave no stone unturned, we actually believe that the challenges that are going to be challenges for all countries, because of our meticulous preparation, will actually be an advantage for the Canadian team because they are so well prepared for the Sochi environment.
Thank you. We have 2 minutes left, and we're going to move to Monsieur Dubé.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chair. Je veux juste profiter de l'occasion, premièrement.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the witnesses for being here, but also to say we've heard about the RCMP, foreign businessmen, and who do the briefings. I think that perhaps we should also invite them to the committee to hear this type in the context of this study. Mr. Aubu, I'm quite confident from the perspective of sport that all is going well. You're very competent. But I do have a specific question. There was in Vancouver a unique initiative, Pride House, that the NGOs were behind this, and it was done in London as well, and also in Rio. The Russian judge that prevents, if you like, the sponsorship of this in Russia, of this Pride House, although the request was made, means that certain teams, national teams, like, say, ours, that would like to have a Pride House, would like to have installations. Have you thought about how you could deal with this, how you could mitigate this before going to Sochi? I will give this to my colleague to answer. Thank you very much, Mr. Dubé, for your question. I'm happy to answer it. On the specific issue, yes, in Vancouver, London, and Rio, there will be, there were and there will be Pride houses, but there is a local decision that is made by the local organizing committee as to what can take up premises in their Olympic Park or not. To be sure, Canada will have its own Olympic house. It will be for, first of all, the family and friends of our athletes, and at the same time, we are in the process of preparing something that might be potentially a special day where all Canadians can have access. As Mr. Aubu said, it doesn't matter what the sexual orientation is, everybody's welcome in our installation.
I'd like to thank our witnesses for coming. We are going to briefly suspend for our next round of witnesses. Thank you. Call the meeting back to order. If our next round of witnesses could come to the table, please. All right, we're calling the meeting back to order, so if our next round of witnesses could come to the table, and our past witnesses. could have a seat. We'd love it if they'd stay. All right, so we're calling the meeting back to order. We have two organizations. First of all, the Canadian Paralympic Committee, Karen O'Neill, Chief Executive Officer, along with Martin Richard, Executive Director of Communications and Marketing, and from Own the Podium, Anne Merklinger, Chief Executive Officer, and Joanne Mortimer, Director of Planning and Operations. So we will start with, is there any preference at the table?
We already did rock, paper, scissors, so I'm going first.
Okay. Ms. O'Neill, you have the floor for 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, committee members. On behalf of Martin Richard and myself from the Canadian Paralympic Committee, we're absolutely thrilled to be here on the what appears to be the eve of a terrific experience in Sochi. I'd just like to make a few opening comments in terms of the Canadian Paralympic Committee, as different from the Canadian Olympic Committee. And clearly our view is to be the world-leading Paralympic nation. And we do that through a focus on both high performance, that would be the support of our high-performance athletes, games teams, and also a development stream, because you cannot acquire the heights of greatness and Paralympic domination and results without a strong system and aligned system leading up to that. Our Paralympic athletes train hard, they compete with intensity and push the boundaries of human achievement. They're athletes first, and they do it for athlete achievement, competition, and are driven by their passion. Every Paralympic athlete has an inspirational story. The Vancouver 2010 Paralympic Games were Canada's best ever Winter Games in history, as Canada placed third in the overall medal, in the gold medal count, with 10 gold medals and 19 overall. As a result, Vancouver was a catalyst in Canada for Paralympic sport, and a time when we saw increased funding and resources for Paralympic athletes, and that continues to this day. So our Sochi team is better prepared with increased number of training camps, augmented support for our coaches, increased competitive opportunities, augmentation to equipment, and technical expertise for sport medicine and science. For Canada to be world leaders in Paralympic sport, we must continue to invest in the critical areas of athlete recruitment, athlete development, and athlete retention, as well as supporting the fundamental leadership of our coaches through all of this. A clear momentum and energy has been established to support the Paralympic movement moving into Sochi. If you'll move to slide 3, and again, just a bit of an overview of what we do. With the support, the tremendous support of the federal government and many of our corporate sponsors, this is probably the easiest way to describe what our business is and the scope of what we provide. In the far left cluster, entitled Grassroots, that really details the type of programming which encompasses things like awareness, first exposure to sport, almost a see it, try it for basic skills, and particularly the focus will be on building and exposing participants and to fundamental movement skills. The next block in the middle we term the next generation, and that's once fundamental movement skills, exposure to some of the basic sports have been provided, that's when really you increase the level of expertise, sport and technical leadership to support the athlete to further hone their interest and their capability within each of the sport. And again, you can see a number of the programs we provide support for, such as the equipment, the coaching program, funding directly for our athletes, and also sports science. On the far left-hand side, which is our Paralympian program, our national team program, and this is what we'll be focusing on today for Sochi. And then clearly this is where our national teams come in, where we provide support and partnership with our national sport federations for coaching, competition opportunities, IST, sport medicine and science, and also research and development. Now, we don't do this alone, and throughout the presentation we'll be speaking about our partners, two of which are beside us right now. We call them our performance partners, and they would be On the Podium, Coaching Association of Canada, and Sport Canada. It's really clear that one of the largest challenges, and listening to some of the questions before in terms of what are some of the barriers or challenges, and it's system alignment and coordination. There's a tremendous amount of talent here in Canada, and the real key is, especially for the leadership and at the national levels, to be able to coordinate and align our efforts to optimize what we can do. If you'll turn to the next slide 4, and now we'll get into Sochi, which is what we're here to talk about today. March 7th to the 16th, our Canadian Paralympic team will be over in Sochi, Russia, to compete in 6 sports. There'll be alpine, biathlon, Nordic, sledge hockey, para-curling, and snowboard for the very first time in Paralympic history. At the bottom of the slide, you'll see a phrase encased in the quotes, and it's perform in the moment, take pride in the journey. And this has been a guiding principle throughout the Games, and in fact it was developed by Canada's chef de mission, Ozzie Sawicki, who is both a previous coach and a technical director in the area of sport. So really, it's really to give the intention that everything counts, all athletes there are to do their best, and the journey is as important as the end result. On the next slide, which speaks to current standings, and I know Anne and her colleague Joanne will be reviewing the results and standings in a little bit more detail, but we'd like to make one particular point which I think is a little bit different for the Paralympics going into Sochi. And as you can see, five rows down is listed Canada. And after the 2012-2013 season, Canada sits 5th overall currently in the gold medal standings. Now, if you pay particular attention to the countries above, you'll see that with the difference of just 1 additional gold medal, that would push Canada to the 3rd standing. And so again, if you were to ask a question about what makes a difference, performance, environment over in Sochi, and again, as our Olympic colleagues spoke about, there's been rehearsal after rehearsal for this moment, and you can see the difference that preparation and support will make, because 1 gold medal is the difference between 5th and 3rd position. On the next slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about our performance objectives. And our performance objectives for Sochi are like Vancouver, to place in the top 3 nations in gold medal count. And again, I do believe Anne will be speaking about that a little later in terms of the detail. This goal was established again in collaboration with our performance partners, On the Podium, Sport Canada, and also our national sport organizations. It's an aggressive and ambitious goal, but we feel it is very attainable. So the team, I'm on to the next slide. Team Canada summary, just thumbnail. We have approximately 110 accredited team members and a total of about 20 additional team members off-site. So that means just outside of the village. Again, you've heard lots about accreditation, but you only get so many tickets, and you use those tickets very, very carefully. So the question is always to our sports, our athletes, our coaches, what will make the difference to optimize your performance? And it's those answers that help us decide who gets the accreditation to be right in the village and on the sites. There's going to be approximately 46 athletes overall, and in 5 of the sports, 6 guides accompanying those athletes. In terms of qualification, 2 team sports, that being curling and sledge hockey, have already qualified. So the remaining 4 sports, again, like our Olympic colleagues, they do not qualify until about mid-February. So you can see how problematic that is as the qualification occurs. It's like you'd be trying to plan a trip to Florida. You'd much prefer to plan 3-4 months in advance, because there certainly is a cost when you know you only have 4 or 5 days for what ticket, what plane, and when you're going to leave. So that's in essence what we have to be prepared for the 4 remaining sports. Part of the cycle, part of the qualification, and again, that's part of our planning to be ready for this. Now, we have medal potential for athletes in every single sport. And in fact, they have multiple athletes returning that have been previous gold medalists in some of our prior games. On page 8, we talk a little bit about the enhanced team services. Again, I know you've heard a lot about this from our Olympic colleagues and the listing of the full set of team services. And again, we work hard. We don't do this alone. We do this in collaboration with our performance partners every step of the way so that the preparation, not only of what we do, but how we work together is well rehearsed. So listing, whether it be games operations, medical support, security, which was a number of the questions this morning, IST, that's really our sports science and technology. We take people over to videotape performance. We have particular software called Dartfish so that by the time the coaches and the athletes get off the hills or off the side of the rink, they've got a full-scale analysis broken down with our sport medicine people and our coaches to be able to review the performance so they can review, revise, and plan for the next day. Communications is a very large part of this. And again, when asked the question earlier, what would make the biggest difference? Communications and promotions. My colleague Martin will address it a little bit. We're in a bit of a different situation. In fact, we took the bold move of acquiring the rights, and Martin will provide some additional details. Friends and family, absolutely critical. Sochi will probably be a much smaller group than Vancouver, but again, it's no less important. We will establish a Canadian Paralympic House in 2 sites so that friends and family can join the athletes and the coaches and the team members while over there to support them throughout their journey. A VIP and partner hospitality. Again, our partners support us 365 days of the year, and this is a set of 10 days for the Games that all of our partners will be joining us in Sochi. We'll probably look at 2 waves at the front end with the opening ceremonies and a program for our partners so that they'll be able to meet our athletes, be exposed to many of the sports and certainly some of the preliminaries. And then we'll have a second wave on the back end where the second group of corporate sponsors and supporters will join us for the closing ceremonies and again, meeting many of the athletes who by that time will have medaled.
Okay. Ms. O'Neill, we'll have to let you expand in the questioning. So
Thank you.
We'll move on to Ms. Merklinger from Own the Podium for 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Bonjour, Madame et Messieurs. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning.
We're with you again this morning. It is of enormous importance to Canada's athletes to know that the Government of Canada and you as the elected politicians continue to care about how they perform. Allow me to acknowledge the critical role that the Government of Canada plays in high-performance sport in Canada. As we heard earlier from Marcel Aubu, the Government of Canada is the single largest contributor to excellence in sport in Canada and is the primary reason that Canada's athletes and coaches have enjoyed the successes they have to this point on the world stage. I've circulated a performance update, a detailed performance update for you on the Sochi Olympic and Paralympic Games for your review. I'm going to focus my remarks on 3 primary components. The first is how Canada stands heading into Sochi. The second is Canada's performance objectives for both the Olympic and Paralympic Games in Sochi. And finally, the level of financial investment and investment strategy that we've adopted throughout the last 4 years. So let's look at how Canada stands heading into Sochi. As we've just heard Karen speak in terms of the Paralympic team's preparation and as well from the Canadian Olympic Committee statement, we are in an excellent position heading into the Games. Our performances at the 2013 World Championships is the best indicator that we have as a nation in terms of how we will perform in Sochi. In 2013, Canada's athletes and coaches won 29 medals in Olympic events. This placed Canada in a tie for 2nd place on the overall nation ranking list. There's a tight race amongst the top 5 nations, as we heard earlier, and finishing 2nd, 3rd, and 4th on the overall medal ranking can be decided by a single medal. On the Paralympic front, as Karen just mentioned, Canada finished 4th overall based on gold medal ranking in 2013 World Championships. We were only 1 medal away from 2nd place, so we know it's an extremely tight race in terms of the gold medal race. Importantly, when you look at the detailed material that I circulated, we showed significant depth in our silver and bronze medal finishes in the 2013 World Paralympic Championships. And so we're now very focused on working with those national sport organizations to convert those silver and bronze medal performances into gold. The margin between second, third, and fourth, as I mentioned again, is so tight. And, you know, as Karen mentioned, the goal of finishing top 3 in gold medal count is still well within our reach. Moving on to Canada's performance objectives for 2014, we've been talking about that all morning. In the Olympic Games, our goal is to improve on our medal count from Vancouver. We won 26 medals in Vancouver and finished 3rd overall in total medal count. The third-ranked nation based on the number of medals that were won in the Olympic Games. Our goal is to contend for number 1 in Olympic medal count, so to do better than we did in Vancouver. In the Paralympic Games, we want to finish top 3 based on our gold medal count. And again, both of those objectives are very attainable. We want to be the first host nation to have won more medals in the next set of games ever. No other nation has won more medals in the subsequent set of games of their hosting experience. The final area I would like to address is the level of financial support that has been provided for Canada's Winter Olympic and Paralympic sports heading into Sochi. An additional $10 million has been provided for the 4 years heading into Sochi compared to the level of investment heading into Vancouver. That's remarkable when you think about we were the host nation in Vancouver. $10 million over the last 4 years, more than was invested into Sochi. The lion's share of that investment comes from the Government of Canada. And this is a testament to the tremendous commitment that you, our elected politicians, and our government has made in high-performance sport, and of course our private sector partners. And we are always out there together with our partners, the Canadian Paralympic Committee and the Canadian Olympic Committee, trying to leverage additional resource investment from the private sector. Our investment strategy, On the Podium's investment strategy, is very deliberate and focused. Our goal is to ensure that every podium potential athlete and team has access to 3 key ingredients: the world's best coaches and technical leaders. We know that without the best coaches, our athletes have a slim possibility of reaching the podium. Secondly, we want to make sure that they have access to a great daily training and competition environment. Those are the basics. Finally, quality sports science and sport medicine support is the last critical ingredient. Research and innovation is a key element in sports science support. Research and innovation can be the 1% factor that brings an athlete from being 4th to being on the podium. In the final year of preparation for Sochi, we have focused on ensuring that all athletes are fully prepared and have had the opportunity to fully familiarize themselves with Sochi. We know Sochi will be a very challenging environment, and it's those athletes that are the most resilient and adaptable that will find their way on the podium. Last but not least, keeping athletes healthy and injury-free is a key area of focus, with 80 days to go before the Olympic Games and 108 days to go before the Paralympic Games. Winning medals in sport continues to be important to Canada. We continue to develop a culture of winning and focus on excellence in Canadian sport, maintaining the momentum we generated in Vancouver and maintained in London. A whole new generation of heroes will emerge from Sochi. With each medalist crowned, we need to ensure that these heroes go back to their communities, your communities, and reinforce the importance of sport and physical activity, healthy living, and being active for life. Canada's children need Olympic heroes. They need positive role models to whom they can aspire and emulate. Success in high-performance sport, we know, strengthens and builds Canadian communities. We have seen our athletes and coaches, and we know that they are our future leaders. We know that they will play a critical role in developing civic pride and instilling a belief that we can win and it is okay to win. Thank you once again on behalf of all of Canada's athletes and coaches for the tremendous support you have provided in On the Podium's quest to help more athletes win more medals in Sochi. Knowing that you care, believe in, and support the athletes in their pursuit means so much to them and to all the sport leaders that are trying so hard to help Canada's athletes. Knowing that they have an entire government and a country behind them will truly make a difference as they head into Sochi. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move to the questioning, and for 7 minutes, Mr. Leung.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to witnesses for appearing. If performance is measured by medals win or to be won, my question is, Canada, as you indicated, has invested more than $10 million into this. Can you tell us what is the additional marginal investment we need to make, if it's in terms of dollars, to win additional medals? Or is money the only situation? And the second question is, how do we compare to other countries like, some of the Nordic countries like Norway, which has a much smaller population? How much do they invest in their athletes to attain that position? I mean, I also see that, there are much bigger countries than ourselves, like Germany and Russia. Is their investment per return on medal less or better than ours?
Well, great questions. First of all, we will do a full analysis after Sochi to determine the merits of our investment strategy. So did the incremental $10 million from private and public sector result in an improved return on investment in terms of medals? So it's premature at this point. We need to, just as we did post-London, really identify where did we have the greatest impact in terms of delivering medals. We have made some changes based on our analysis post-London in terms of our investment strategy. We know that those sports that have the potential to win multiple medals deliver the greatest return on investment. So we'll make the same kind of changes, strategic changes post-Sochi based on our analysis. The additional $10 million is spread over 4 years. So even just in terms of the incremental cost to deliver a program in year 4 of the games as opposed to year 1 of the games will account for some of that. But a full analysis will unfold after both the Olympic and Paralympic Games to assess the return on investment. As to what other nations are investing, we, first of all, know that Canada is investing more than they ever have, and we need to acknowledge that and recognize that. Many sport organizations will always want additional resources. We want to make sure that we are investing the money wisely and that we are delivering on the objectives that have been established for Canada.
Well, okay, an underlying thought is that investment in sports or athletes or athletic-related activities has far-reaching implications for society, for the benefit of society in terms of long-term health and so on. Has any announcement been done as to, what we invest in sports and what the other ancillary income benefits are to the society as a whole in terms of better health, better nutrition, in terms of Paralympics, better equipment and tools to aid mobility and other such ancillary factors? Have we done that type of analysis?
Sure. There's been it's a great question, because there's been a tremendous amount of research done on the Paralympic side or individuals with a disability. There's no question that degrees of independence, degrees of fewer requirements, degrees of ability to be able to engage with society increase substantially with great enormity once an individual is able to get up, be active, and also from a health perspective. I would also say, if our colleagues were here from PHE Canada, probably one of the most grounding principles is for our youth of today, with the tremendous challenges of obesity, that one of the strongest indicators for health right now, and especially with our young children, is to do with physical activity, and particularly the proponent of at least an hour of physical activity a day. And this would be the whole foundation. I would say that our entire sports system right now is galvanizing around to be able to support across the country.
And I certainly look forward to a post-game analysis of how we compare against other nations, and also how our funding into athletics and sports can benefit the health and welfare of the entire population. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, okay. Mr. Chair, is there additional time? Or
We've got 2 more minutes.
Oh, okay. On their matter, is that I'm coming back to how we stack up against other nations. Like, how do we, Nordic sports are only for northern climates and perhaps some of the few countries like Chile and Australia that may have athletes. How do we, in having that natural environment that we have in Canada, do we invest in money or do we invest enough money in developing those venues so that it could be also part of our tourism attraction for other countries? Or can you give us a sense whether that type of funding is going into developing our venues for sports, for winter sports?
Certainly, given Canada hosted the 2010 Olympic and Paralympic Games, we are rich in facilities with that are ideal for Canada's winter sport athletes to train and prepare for games. Canada is particularly strong in the Olympic sports, in the new sports, so in the freestyle and snowboard sports. And many of the nations like Norway, if you look at a nation like Norway, they're stronger in some of the more traditional sports. Those are also the sports where there's an extremely deep competitive field. And Canada has really emerged as a dominant nation in new sports like freestyle and snowboard. And we have great facilities in pockets across Canada, both as a result of our hosting of the Games in 2010 and also the culture within the new sports. And certainly in terms of, well, I'll let Karen speak on the Paralympic front.
No, I would echo the same thing, and particularly the trend with some of the new sports, of which we expect to do quite well with the addition of para-snowboarding. So I would say the trends are similar, if not the same.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leon. We'll move to Monsieur Dubé.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you also to our witnesses for being here today. My question really is for my friends of the Paralympic Committee. When the London post-mortem was conducted, my Conservative colleagues of the day on the committee spoke, this is really out of the context of your line of work, because I know this is decision-making that is made in another venue, but do you find that it's an obstacle not to have the Paralympics occur in the same time frame as the Olympics at the same time, because they would be able to actually perform in February rather than afterwards in March? I know you can't answer it, but what do you think about this?
Question, but a very good one, because it touches on a couple of items. The two international organizations that govern us, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, and the IPC, the International Paralympic Committee, has had an open discussion about this, particularly under the banner of what I would say is called inclusion. And so I think for many, many years, the model of same as, and would that mean that the games would be embedded or integrated so that they would be same time, same framing, all in. And I would say that it's been an avid discussion over the years, and I would say we've probably evolved to a point now whereby the specificity of each of the sports in their own right, the number of events, because each of the events and the athletes are very large, that at a very operational level would be very difficult to do, because you would cut down on sports, on athletes, on the games itself, and the opportunities. So in fact, it would even become much smaller and a lesser opportunity to compete. But I would also say that particularly for the Paralympics in their own right, I'm going to say the sport, the movement, very strong decision that promoting Paralympic sport in its own right with its own set of games has many other benefits. Top of the list would be the number of athletes and countries that can participate in the games and also present athletes in their own right. We like to say our games are no different from the Olympics, and certainly in terms of the athletic prowess and the training and the degree of commitment our athletes have, and certainly that platform of exposure to have that opportunity with the Paralympics. The only other point I would say would be on the broadcast, and I alluded to that a little bit earlier, because there's a lot of activity around the Olympics, and then it it's far less during the Paralympics. And that's why I referred to earlier is that we decided that wasn't acceptable. In London, and your comment about the London debrief, Channel 4 was a groundbreaker in London, in fact, in the amount of coverage that they provided. And if there was one lesson, aside from all the other items that we're looking at in terms of taking the lessons from London and Vancouver into Sochi, the number one at the top of their list was, we're not going to have what happened to us in the previous games ever happen again, where the exposure is maybe a highlights package at the end or it's a half an hour. So we've bought the rights, we've created a media consortium, and we are going to have unprecedented coverage here in Canada that I hope will be the banner and set the bar for what is to come, not only for Sochi, but for 2015 and for Rio thereafter.
C'est une très bonne nouvelle à entendre.
That's very good news. But in the same vein, what can you do to improve matters with respect to, say, advertising per se? People have to look at it. It's okay to be on TV, but you have to have viewers. If everybody decides to look at Channel 10 rather than another channel, we're no further ahead. So should the government speak more loudly about this, or should it be more widely advertised at the games, at the Olympic Games? What do you think should be done in terms of just making people aware of advertising the fact that there will be this type of broadcasting?
Merci, Monsieur Dubé. Justement, une de nos stratégies.
Thank you. Precisely, Mr. Dubé. One of our strategies is to make sure our athletes are well known before they even set foot on the ground at Sochi. We want Canadians to know that, so we've got some 150 hours of content about the athletes, some 300 or so about the games and the events. It's crucial that our heroes, that our participants will become well known to Canadians. We want them to feel that we are proud of them, that we are ready to encourage them in their endeavors. So as of November 27, the 100 days, when the 100-day countdown begins for Sochi, for the Paralympics, we will be marking certain events in a variety of places, of locations in Canada where we will have Paralympic as well as Olympic participants. Well, this interest that you seek to augment in the population, Mr. Aubin referred to this as well. Sport is such a great and important sector for Canada. Are there some inherent challenges in that there might be less interest demonstrated by Canadians to watch on TV if you compare it to the Olympics per se? Well, again, that's an excellent question. Well, on November the 27th, rather, we are going to announce the fact that there's this Paralympic consortium, this first Paralympic consortium that is so very important, this media consortium that will be operating during the Games. Of course, there is a cost that's involved. There is the support of 4 main sponsors that were required to fund this new strategy. Our partners are listening and they are ready to contribute, not just financially, but they are ready to put out a marketing campaign, an ad campaign, as well to have a greater publicity attached to the Paralympic program. Thank you. Mr. Dion, 7 minutes. Thank you very much, Chairman.
I would like to know at this point, a couple of weeks before the Olympics, what are the main challenges you have to face? Because you prepared yourself for so long. Now it's the Blitz. So I would like to understand, for this committee, it would be helpful, what are the main tasks that you need to carry on?
Well, I think that's it's probably a question for both of us, actually.
Yes, indeed.
So from a team perspective, from a Paralympic team, not unlike our Olympic committee members, we've been to Sochi double-digit times, and so it really is having established the pattern, having established all of the scenarios, it's practice, repeat, and looking at every single opportunity where there might be something that might go wrong. So it's really just rehearsing and going over all of the details that we've been developing for the last couple of years. I would say that the travel, because I talked about the late qualification, which goes into February, unlike the Olympics, the travel remains a challenge. We've been able to mitigate that with working with our corporate premier partner, Air Canada, and to also look at some of the partner airlines. But what happens is after the Olympics, all of the other partner airlines substantially reduce the air travel pathways to Sochi. So we're having to look at rather creative options for air travel. They're all within the intention of team performance, but certainly it doesn't make it any easier. I would say that all the other items that were alluded to earlier, safety, security, welcome, the friends and family, are all well in motion. And I would say, further to the other questions, I'm saying outside of this, it's a tremendous investment leading up to the Games. And if we cannot display the athletes and the performances and the experience over there, that would be such a shame. And so that's why I go back to the broadcast in terms of we're clear and we're confident on the operational aspect and ensuring that our athletes and coaches have what they need right now. We need to make sure we've got the platform to tell their story. And so that's uppermost for us, so we don't lose that part. Anne?
On the podium's role is to make sure that when the athletes and coaches and support staff get on the plane to Sochi, that they have no regrets, that they've been fully prepared, that they're able to look in the mirror and say, we've done everything possible to perform to our best at the Olympic and Paralympic Games. And we feel very comfortable and confident that we've done that. And so we take that responsibility very seriously. And we know that when the athletes do arrive in Sochi for both the Olympic and Paralympic Games, they will be fully prepared. They'll have ample opportunity to experience Sochi. It is quite a unique environment. So having been there and experienced it, live, eat, breathe, day in and day out in that particular environment will be a significant advantage for them. They also need to manage distractions, and so we work very closely with athletes and coaches to protect what we call the athlete-coach bubble, make sure that it's distraction-free, that they are able to focus exclusively on their performance. Both the Canadian Olympic Committee and the Canadian Paralympic Committee are the world's best when it comes time to executing Games missions, and we are above and beyond the rest of the world in that particular area. So we know that our job is essentially done when they get on the plane, but more importantly, we hand it over to our partners in the CPC and COC to execute a world-class Games mission.
Is the controversy about the anti-gay law in Russia something that you need to be very careful about to protect our athletes and the whole Canadian team?
I would say both organizations have reviewed that particular issue and are comfortable in briefing the teams. I'll let Karen speak to that from a CPC perspective.
Absolutely, and our response would not differ much from our colleagues before, and Anne is right. Certainly from a communications perspective, we've run through a number of scenarios in addition to ensuring that our team throughout, our mission staff working with the RCMP and security, that our strategies, our communications, the options and the way we're going to manage it, the athletes, which is most central to this, have the information they need before they go to Sochi. So every effort is being taken to be able to mitigate and manage that.
Est-ce que la question des langues officielles a été bien préparée?
Was the issue of official languages well prepared? We don't want to have any problems, useless ones that could spoil the party. Absolutely. In the Canadian team, all athletes, Anglophone or Francophone, will be served in the language of their choice. And when we communicate with Canadians, it will be done in official languages, including the broadcasting on television. It's very important for us in the Paralympics to be accessible for everyone. So all our TV coverage will also be described. There will be closed captioning for all events on English and French channels.
I just wanted to add for the Paralympics, it's as much the official languages and also to ensure that, as Martin referred to, that they're all in alternate formats also. So individuals that might be hearing impaired, visually impaired, so especially even with our media broadcast strategy, one of the consortium partners is one that deals with alternate formats, so official languages and also alternate formats in both official languages.
There was a question I should have asked to the minister because it's key. It's about security. It's difficult to comment about security by definition, but Canadians want to know if everything has been done to protect our athletes about any physical threat that may happen. Athletes and the whole team.
Yep. I can honestly speak to the strong leadership and generosity of sharing the information and moving along with our security plan. We've had several briefings with the senior staff, with our partner Sport Canada and our Olympic colleagues, and also on the podium, whereby we have several of us now have increased security status to be able to have access to the information, in addition to their commitment for the briefings and the alternate scenarios. Obviously, there's more that probably he can respond to that, but certainly from our perspective, we are feeling very, very well supported at this point in our preparations.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to Mr. Bowen for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the panel for taking time to share your thoughts with us about the Paralympics. We appreciate your being here. A couple of things to hear from the panel on. Can you share with us what's been happening on and off the field in terms of preparation, particularly when you hear professional athletes saying 20% is skill, 80% is mental. What's happening in terms of setting that mental clock in place so that our athletes are ready to go when their turn comes up? Can you share with us the thoughts on that?
Sure, I'll start, and Karen can add. The preparation for the Olympic and Paralympic Games starts the day after the previous Games finish. It's 4 years, it's 364 days of preparation. And around each athlete are a very specific, well-trained group of a team. And that team will include what we call a sports psychologist or a mental performance consultant. And that specialist will work with a national sport organization and a particular athlete or a team in the full preparation through to the Games. That sports psychologist, mental performance consultant will go to the Games, go to Sochi, they'll be familiar with the environment, they will develop a customized approach for each athlete as they prepare for the Games. Even our pro teams that may not have the exposure to that level of support in the early part of the 4 years leading up to the Games, they too now have a sports psychologist, mental performance consultant that's fully entrenched in the team's preparation. So it's something that is very it's very important to Canadian high-performance sport, and an element that we take very seriously. We are in the midst now of looking at succession planning and development of the next generation of sports psychologists and mental performance consultants, so that we can be assured that every podium potential athlete is equipped with that important service.
Mm-hmm. And specifically to the Paralympic team, each of our teams and our athletes that are vying for a berth have the option or are currently engaged with a sport psychologist. We deal with a group of centres called the Canadian Sport Institutes and Centres, and it's through these centres that we work in partnership to be able to find and work with the skilled psychologists, sports psychologists, to assist our athletes. I would say, in addition to what Anna said, because it really does start as soon as London was complete, I'd also say that each one of our athletes, both the full teams and those athletes in contention for a berth right now, have all competed in Sochi. So what you want to do is, when you're being exposed to your preparation, you want to be able to expose them to as many circumstances that are as close to competition conditions. So that is both practice, that is 4x4 competition elsewhere, but they've also been able to see and try and compete in Sochi already. And that's a tremendous advantage going into the Games.
Right. We heard about communications from the Olympic folks that were with us earlier, and there was some talk about communications. Can you share with us how we're going to have access to the Paralympic folks in terms of saying, good job, we watched you do what you do, and it was great? I mean, you know, in this age of communications, a couple of whacks on the old computer and you've got a little recognition to folks that are competing. Will there be a list of people so we don't have to hunt too far to find that address?
Absolutely. One of the main areas for us is ensuring that our athletes are connected to Canadians, and using technology to connect them from Sochi to Canadians, whether it's social media, is very important. So we actually encourage our athletes to be engaged in social media and sharing their experiences, their stories, and also answering questions and communicating directly with Canadians. As far as government officials and MPs, we do encourage you through our team announcement to participate in that. And also, we'll make sure that all the athletes' hometowns are listed so you know who is from your area of the country and able to communicate directly with the athletes, whether it's through the communication agents for each sport or directly with the athletes through various mechanisms. Yeah.
And I would say that would be in all of our activities leading up to Sochi, during Sochi, and then all of the activities after Sochi, because there's a tremendous celebration when we get back with this whole school program, the parades, and the welcome home. So you would be apprised of that every step of the way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. How are we doing, Chair?
You have 2 minutes left.
2 minutes, good. Well, I guess one of the things that all athletes face are performance objectives, and how well do I run that 100 yards, how high do I get off the ski slope, and all the rest of those things. Have there been performance objectives established with the Paralympic athletes so they have a chance to do better than their very best, or are they going to be kind of clocked at what it is they do? Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely, and maybe I'll respond from a Paralympic perspective, and then my colleague who lives and breathes performance on a daily basis will jump in here. Absolutely, it's same as. And I would say that each of our member sports presents a plan, actually two, on the podium that clearly lists their entire quadrennial plan. It would be called their yearly training plan with key targets throughout. The difference between our Olympic colleagues and ourselves would be that there's an additional item called classification. So for instance, if you're at a swimming meet, there'll be a number of classifications. So an individual that might have no arm or might have a spinal cord will have a classification, and there'll be a different designation for their performance targets. But make no bones about it, it is world-class performance targets that each of these have both built into their plans, aspire to in terms of targets along the way, and also in their final completion for a berth in Sochi.
Thanks, Karen. Every athlete will have their own personal performance objective. Every sport will have their own sport objective, and we as a nation have our performance objectives for both the Olympic and Paralympic Games, as you've heard. An important element that On the Podium's introduced in the last 2 years is not just looking at Sochi, but looking at the next set of games and making sure that we're developing that next generation of podium potential athlete. So that is another important metric that we will look at this set of games, and we're already looking at 2022. As a nation, we want to sustain our performance at the Olympic and Paralympic Games from games to games to games. And so we need to invest a little bit deeper in that next generation athlete. So there's performance objectives established 8 years out as well.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to the second round, of which there will only be one questioner. Ms. Matheson for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for all of this information. It's very, very clear that you've done a remarkable amount of work in regard to what I think is perhaps the most significant piece of this, and that is the preparation of athletes, the celebration of athletes, because in the past, we haven't recognized the incredible talents the way we should, and I'm very grateful that you've made that special effort, because these, of course, are special people by virtue of the level of skill and incredible aplomb and dedication that they bring to their sports. I had a couple of things in regard to these elite athletes, and there's been a great deal of discussion about how you prepare an elite athlete to be ready, and the impact that they have on the general public in terms of role models and what it means to function in a community. I wondered, to what degree are you able to develop young athletes? There have to be all kinds of kids out there who have no idea of what they can become. Are you able to direct some of your energies towards saying, this is a possibility for you, and we will develop that talent?
Thank you very much. I wish I had the next hour. Let me respond to that in two ways. I'll ask Martin in a minute to speak to the communications campaign, because it's one thing to be able to present the achievements of the athlete, but we're quite intentionally tying that into the Get Involved campaign afterwards. Because it's one thing to celebrate the heroic achievements of our athletes in Sochi, but there needs to be something afterwards. Again, it'll be for naught if we can't leverage that and be able to inspire the next generation that Anne was speaking about. In fact, I would say probably a good third of our athletes on our current hopeful Sochi team have shared with Martin and his team many of the stories that they saw or they heard about one of the athletes on TV or in the newspaper, and that's how, particularly for an individual with a disability, they knew it was possible because they weren't exposed to it. In my opening comments, I made a comment about system, and in fact, with the generous investment post-Vancouver, that's in fact what we've been working on very, very much so. That our goal is to be able to increase the participation rates of individuals with a disability from 3% to 6%, and that was why the investment. And that's why when you looked at that third frame of particularly the system and that middle part, we have research to say that exposure is good, but unless exposure has an opportunity to see it and test it or try it afterwards, then the exposure is really for naught. So that's why the system pieces have to fit together like a puzzle, so that a person sees the opportunity, then knows where to go, then has some assistance to be able to navigate, some assistance to navigate the system, and that there is a catchment system, that there are programs and quality coaches to be able to take the new individual and to try the sport activity.
Thank you.
Maybe to add to Karen's point, our athletes inspire. They inspire Canadians. And those are the stories that we want to vehicle to the Canadian public during the Paralympic Games. And obviously, the Paralympic Games provide us the opportunity with increased awareness of the sport. We want to make sure that the younger generation actually see themselves doing Paralympic sport. We have a campaign entitled "It's More Than Sport" that really showcases the benefits of sport, what benefits sport brings as a lifelong skill. And so during the Paralympic Games and that 100 days of leading up to the Games, we're ensuring that this PSA campaign is shown on all our media partners' platforms to really drive that awareness piece that sport is available for all.
Seconds.
Okay. You talked about the school programs. How do the schools connect? How do school districts connect so that they can indeed participate?
Between the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games, the Paralympic Committee is launching its Paralympic Schools Week. We'll be reaching out to over 75,000 school children and teachers, and using our summer athletes to really promote the Paralympic movement. This will be key for us in increasing the awareness for the Paralympic Games, but also making sure that the young kids are exposed to these individuals and their stories.
All right, thank you very much. On behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank our witnesses for joining us today. It was very informative, and I know that the committee appreciated that, so thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.